Hello, everyone, and welcome to UC Berkeley, at least virtually. My name is Evelyn. I'm a fourth-year student here and campus ambassador, and I will be moderating today's virtual visit. Before we begin, we just wanted to say that we recognize that many people are facing significant challenges at this time, so we really appreciate that you took the time out of your day to spend learning a little bit more about UC Berkeley. We'll go ahead and go over some really exciting news that we're recently celebrating. So we recently celebrated 2 Nobel Prize wins. First, we have Professor Jennifer Doudna, who just won the 2020 Nobel Prize in Chemistry, and Professor Reinhard Genzel, who just won the 2020 Nobel Prize for Physics. So these are really exciting points of pride for us, and we're excited to welcome 2 new Nobel laureates into the faculty. All right, today we will have a 45-minute presentation led by 2 student campus ambassadors. And you all out there watching, we have disabled the chat function, but you're welcome to type questions into the Q&A box. So there's a little function at the bottom of your screen where you can type any question that you might have throughout the presentation. And we have a whole team of student campus ambassadors who are ready to answer your questions. We'll also have a few polls throughout the presentation, so make sure to fill those out so we can learn a little bit more about you. And there will be another recorded version of this virtual visit available on our website. This tour will be a campus overview from the student perspective. We will not go over admissions or financial aid information, but there is a separate admissions presentation that we'll refer you to. And lastly, we'll end with a live Q&A session where we'll do our best to answer any questions that you asked today. So again, use that Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen. And with that, I'll hand it off to Will and Haley, our 2 guides for today.
Hi everyone, my name is Will and my pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm from Mill Valley, California, which is just north of San Francisco, so still in the Bay Area, pretty close. I am a second year here, intending on majoring in human geography and minoring in Portuguese and applied linguistics. And my involvement is pretty broad on campus, including Delta Phi Epsilon, which is a co-ed professional foreign service fraternity. I also volunteer through Reuse, which is our on-campus thrift store. I participate in Cal Running Club as well as the language exchange program, where I meet with an international student from Brazil and we talk in English and Portuguese so that we can both enhance our language skills because she's learning English and I'm learning Portuguese, which has been really great. I'm also part of URAP, which is an undergraduate research apprenticeship program. So this semester has been really exciting. I've been doing research with the Institute of European Studies on campus. And before coming to Berkeley, I took a gap year and deferred my acceptance and studied abroad in Spain for the whole year, and I'm intending on studying abroad again. So if you have questions about any of these things, feel free to put them in the Q&A, and I'll hand it off to Haley.
Hi everyone, my name's Haley. I use she and her pronouns and I'm from Connecticut. I'm a junior studying molecular and cell biology. And outside of giving tours, I'm involved with the sorority, halal, and Cal alcohol task force.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, a big welcome to everyone joining us today. You'll see a poll popping up on your screen. We've introduced ourselves. We want to get to know you all a little bit better. And you'll see some really beautiful pictures of our campus here, as well as some drone footage. You'll also see in the bottom left that we are celebrating 150 years of women at Berkeley, which has been really exciting. All of these different events and panels and a lot of recognizing different historical moments, especially since Berkeley was admitting women 50 years before they had the right to vote. So we've been really excited to be celebrating that. You can also see some beautiful pictures of our campus. We'll be explaining a lot of different things, but keep in mind that there's a lot of nature and it's really such a beautiful place. And it seems like a lot of you are high school seniors, so welcome to the visit and we'll get started.
All right, so we're really excited to tell you all about Berkeley today. A few of the topics that we're going to cover are academics, housing and dieting, student life, athletics, library and research, and remote learning. And with that, I will hand it back to Will.
Yeah, thanks, Haley. So getting a bit into Berkeley history, we were founded in 1868, and we go by a few different names. Berkeley, #1 public school in the world. Cal, University of California. We are the first UC campus, so this is why sometimes you'll see the University of California title referring specifically to us or to all of the UCs, so including Riverside, Santa Barbara, and all of the rest of them. Cal is usually used with athletics and things like that, and Berkeley is sort of used more broadly, but we go by a bunch of different names. Our mascot is the Golden Bears. You'll see a picture of Oski in the top left, who's a really fun spirit to have on campus. Our campus size is pretty big. We have about 31,000 undergraduates and almost 12,000 graduate students. This just means that whatever opportunity you want to find or don't yet know that you want to find, we have it here. There's a lot going on. And we also have a bunch of historical landmarks on campus, which is something I've really grown to appreciate. You can see Sather Gate in the bottom right photo, which you might recognize from Monsters University, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and our Campanile in the top right. And there's just a lot of really beautiful architecture on campus.
All right, so we have a campus culture of being change makers, and we put a lot of value in community, so compassion, passion, and social justice. One of the pictures you might be wondering about in the top right corner is a picture from the free speech movement. The free speech movement happened in the 1960s, and it was where students wanted to be able to have free speech on campus. They wanted to be able to have political dialogues and talk about issues that were important to them. And as a result of the free speech movement, we now have a culture of really advocating for what we believe in here. And then in the bottom right corner, you can see a picture of our rally committee. Our rally committee is our school spirit committee, so they hype everyone up at football games, and they really keep school spirit up on campus, so they're a lot of fun to have around.
Yeah, so in addition to what Haley said, we have this great history of activism on campus, whether it's the disability rights movement, establishing the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, or tons of other things, protests that we can see in the top left, amazing scientific discoveries, new literature in the humanities. This comes through in a lot of different ways. But for me as a student, this also comes through in the everyday instances. It comes through with the inspiration that I get from my classes and professors, challenging me to think more deeply about these issues, my place in the world, what I can do to make sure that other people have a voice and an opportunity. So as you can see, there's a lot of spirit on campus. We really value people who have this kind of drive to change others. And the best thing to make situations better for everyone. And the best thing about this is that you don't have to know what that looks like before coming to Berkeley. I certainly didn't, but having spent a year, almost 2 now, at Berkeley, I've really found a lot of different ways to get involved. I'm looking into getting involved with the Human Rights Center. So this culture really comes through in our history, as well as in the everyday instances, and for certain in our future.
All right, so I'm going to now tell you a little bit about what's going on now on campus. So in terms of education, we have a student tech program, which is really great because if students don't have access to Wi-Fi or computers, the university can actually help out with that, and students can rent a laptop for the semester. Or in the spring, they were sending like hotspots out to make sure that everyone had access in the remote environment. In terms of COVID research, we have tons of COVID research going on here at Berkeley, including a rapid saliva test. There was a study for that. And now we have like these take-home saliva tests where you can actually go pick up the test, do a spit test instead of a swab test, and then drop it off and get tested, which is pictured in the bottom right corner on the slide. And then in terms of advocacy and social justice, we have we put a lot of value into human rights and anti-racism, and we have a lot of research going on in those areas as well.
Yeah, so to get into some more details about academics, you'll see a poll popping up on your screen asking what you all are interested in. And just as an overview of the different colleges here we have on campus, in terms of undergraduate colleges, we have Letters and Science, the Rausser College of Natural Resources, Environmental Design, as well as Chemistry and Engineering. You are able, so when you apply, you're going to apply to one of these colleges directly. You are able to transfer between colleges once you get here, but it can be a little bit more difficult to transfer into the College of Chemistry or the College of Engineering. So if you're interested in either of those things, definitely apply to those colleges directly. Whereas with Letters and Science, for example, it's pretty easy to change your major kind of whenever, so it's not as big of a deal. You're really easily able to double major within any of these colleges. If you get two majors that are in different colleges, this is actually called a simultaneous degree. It's also feasible. You just need to do a bit more planning to make sure you're checking off all of those different boxes for requirements. Seems like a lot of you are interested in the biological sciences and physical sciences, which is really awesome. We've got a lot of great information on that. And with this overview, we'll head into some more details about each college individually.
All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the College of Letters and Sciences. It's my favorite one because it's the one that my major is in. I'm a molecular and cell biology major. So the College of Letters and Sciences is our largest college. It has 3/4 of our student population. It has tons of different majors, everything from English to physics to linguistics. It's a really broad college, so it has everything. And what's cool in the College of Letters and Sciences, so all of the colleges have breadth requirements, and then the College of Letters and Sciences, which I'm in, you get to take a wide variety of classes in different areas. So you'll get to take like a biological science class, uh, social science. You just get to take a really broad variety. And one thing that's really cool is one of our alumni ended up was a linguistics major in the College of Letters and Sciences and wrote the Dothraki language from Game of Thrones, which is really cool.
Yeah, definitely, Haley. I actually met him because he used to be the president of the linguistics club I'm in. So a lot of really cool alumni who always come and talk with us. So that was really fun. And then this is the Rausser College of Natural Resources. So as a geography major, some of my requirements are more like physical or environmental science. So I've definitely enjoyed taking some classes through here. They all have an environmental focus and sort of some similar offerings to the College of Letters and Science. You can study biology, nutrition and toxicology, ecosystems, interdisciplinary studies, social sciences, economics and policy. There are really a lot of different options, and they all have this underpinning of sustainability and social justice, whether that's looking at political ecology or environmental justice and environmental racism. Something I really appreciate about this college and a lot of the different courses here is that they have field trips. So last fall, my first semester, I took a class that was just camping. We had lunch on the beach every day, and I got to just basically hang out with this incredibly intelligent professor and grad students and some other students as well, and talk about rocks in California. So it was really fun. There are a lot of different ways to get involved with the environment through this college.
All right, so next we have the College of Environmental Design. The College of Environmental Design is our smallest college with about 650 students. And there are 4 majors, so architecture, landscape architecture, urban studies, and sustainable environmental design. Um, I've heard a lot about some really cool projects that go on in the College of Environmental Design. So one of the tour guides who graduated in the spring was once telling me about a project where she took a book and carved buildings into it, or like carved like different structures into it. So some really cool things going on in there. And one alumni that I always like to mention on tours is Irving Morrow, who was the lead architect on the Golden Gate Bridge. So it's really cool to have a Berkeley alumni who did so much work on such a hallmark landmark.
Yeah, definitely, Haley. And then moving on to the College of Chemistry. This is another one of our smaller colleges with about 1,000 students. It is ranked #1 globally, so it's very prestigious. There are three majors: chemistry, chemical engineering, and chemical biology, and they really value innovation and research. We can see this in their history with 16 elements discovered, which is pretty insane. This is why you might see the names berkelium or californium on the periodic table, because those were developed right here at Berkeley. And then Lewis dot structures. So I had to take chemistry in high school. Didn't much enjoy it, but I definitely remember learning about Lewis dot structures. These were actually introduced in our introductory chemistry class right here at Berkeley. So this college really has a rich history of, discoveries relating to the field as well as teaching and pedagogy. So it's a really great mix. I have a lot of friends who are studying chemistry, who are in the chemistry fraternity, or a bunch of other groups on campus. There are lots of opportunities here as well, and some really amazing alumni too.
All right, so next I'm going to tell you a little bit about the College of Engineering. So the College of Engineering has about 3,800 students with 11 majors. Some of those majors include chemical engineering, nuclear engineering, and a very popular electrical engineering. For the College of Engineering, it's a little bit different because you apply directly into your major. So for the College of, for example, Letters and Sciences, which I'm in, I applied to the college and then took classes and declared my major later on. Whereas here you apply directly into your major. So if you want to be a bioengineering major, you would apply into the bioengineering major. And then through breadth requirements, you'll have the opportunity to take classes in humanities and social sciences in addition to those engineering courses. And a couple of alumni that I always like to mention on tours. So one is Steve Wozniak, who is one of the co-founders of Apple, and another is Rube Goldberg, who invented like the Rube Goldberg machines. If you've ever seen those, so there's a lot of really interesting work going on in the College of Engineering.
And to round up our discussion of the different colleges on campus, we'll be talking about the graduate schools. We have 9 graduate schools on campus, and a lot of the departments within these schools actually, or a lot of departments in the undergraduate colleges offer graduate programs in addition to these 9 schools. One to highlight is the Haas School of Business. We do have a few different undergraduate programs through the school, like business administration, which you apply to as a sophomore at Berkeley. Global management, that allows you to study abroad your first semester here in London and come back and finish your studies in the Haas School of Business. There's biology and business, as well as the MET program, which is management, entrepreneurship, and technology, that allows you to get an engineering degree as well as a business degree at the same time. A lot of these other schools have some really fantastic opportunities like this as well. I have friends getting minors from School of Public Policy or optometry, journalism. I think also just having the graduate perspective on campus is really valuable, with teaching courses and having, other students who are, for example, like me, who are new to the social sciences, and then someone else who's getting their PhD, so has more experience but still learning, maybe has learned some more contemporary theory, as well as someone who's incredibly experienced in the field, which would be like a professor, multiple professors, right? So there are a lot of great opportunities for undergraduates as well as graduates, and I think this symbiosis between these different academic communities is really valuable.
All right, so a little bit about structure and class size. So you have both lecture and discussion. So most classes, especially if they're larger classes, will have a lecture. So for example, like my biochemistry class this semester has about 400 people in it. And then the lecture is taught by a professor. And then you have discussion section where you're broken into sections of about 25 people, which is led by a graduate student or graduate student instructor. We call them GSIs. All professors and graduate students hold office hours. So you have tons of opportunities to get to know your professors and grad students, and also to ask questions about course materials. What's nice in big classes is oftentimes you can go to any of the grad students' office hours. So you can pretty much find any, so because they're so frequent, it's really easy to fit office hours into your schedule. And also, I think one of the perks of remote learning is that it's super easy to go to office hours because you're just clicking on a Zoom link rather than having to like walk to campus. So I've personally found that I've gone more this semester than I have in previous semesters just because it is so convenient. Um, for our class sizes, so we have an 18-to-1 student to faculty ratio with 85% of our classes having less than 50 students in them. So you do get the opportunity to get to know your professors and instructors, um, and you really get a community feel here. And then in terms of hands-on labs and studios, so for me, like I mentioned, I'm a biology major, so I've done lots of labs, whether that be OChem labs or bio labs, and it's a really great opportunity to get to apply what you're learning hands-on, and get to learn different lab techniques, which is really cool, especially if you're looking to do like research. You get to learn all the skills. And then in terms of resources, we have a student learning center and then individual advising. So our student learning center is really helpful with peer-to-peer tutoring. They have it in all of the lower division, or a lot of the lower division classes. For example, they have peer advising for, or peer tutoring for like bio, physics, chem. So I definitely used it quite a bit. And then they're also really helpful for if you write a paper, like they're good at like helping you with papers for different classes as well. So they're a great resource. And then there's individual advising. So we have advising for each department, and then also for each college. So before you declare your major, oftentimes students will use the college advising, and then after you declare your major, students will often use the department advising. I've found MCB advising to be really helpful, especially like when I'm currently like looking into research for next semester, and they're really great about like looking over my resume or like reading over applications and kind of like helping me figure out like how to apply.
I definitely agree about the Student Learning Center. I've gotten a lot of help from them with essays and things like that. So really fantastic resource to have virtually now as well. So this fall semester, what does this look like? We are fully remote, and the university is basically planning to have hybridization goals in line with CDC guidelines. So when it is safe, opening sort of effectively and having really student safety, staff, faculty, Berkeley community safety at the forefront of our operations and plans. The academic experience, I've actually enjoyed it a lot. We do have access to Zoom Pro, which just means you have all the nifty features of Zoom. We actually get a ton of different software from being Berkeley students, like Adobe, New York Times, like tons of different things. So I sort of expected. There is synchronous and asynchronous learning. This means that some of your classes will meet exactly at that time, and you'll talk with the professor, do all of those normal classroom things. Other times it's asynchronous, meaning they'll record something and you can watch it whenever you want. So sort of more flexibility, especially keeping in mind that a lot of students are coming from around the world, whether it's South Korea or Spain or other time zones in the US. So definitely feasible for lots of different kinds of students. And again, there are lots of resources to help you along the way. There were in person, there still are virtually, there always will be. We have virtual drop-in tutoring for really any subject you want, advising like Haley was talking about there, and instructional resilience. This sort of means having pedagogy, online pedagogy taught to professors and graduate students. So I know that a lot of my professors have gone to specific like workshops and things like that to learn how to better teach students virtually. And so it has been a shift, of course, it's different, but I've been really happy with how many people are working really hard to make sure this still works. And in my experience, it has worked out pretty well.
All right, so now we're going to move a little bit into housing and dining. So you should see a poll pop up, and we want to know where you guys are coming from, and then we'll tell you about like housing here. So we have residential halls and suites. So We have a few different options in terms of housing in the residential halls. We have the units, which are units 1, 2, and 3. Those are really standard um, dorms, so like it's mostly doubles and triples. Um, you have common space on the ground floor, and then you have laundry machines on every other floor, and then the floors that don't have laundry have study lounges. And then we have Clark Kerr, which is the farthest from campus, but has the biggest rooms, and it has a lot of suites. So it has more space. We have Blackwell, which is similar to the units, but is all doubles, and it's also the newest building on campus. And then we have Foothill. So the other buildings I mentioned are on the south side of campus. The south side of campus tends to be a little bit busier. It's where most of the restaurants are. The north side of campus is a little bit quieter. That's where Foothill is. Um, and so freshmen get priority on housing. We have about 97% of the freshmen living in the dorms. In terms of resources, we have residential assistants. So those are upperclassmen who live in the residence halls, and they're there to be a resource for you to give guidance, and just there in case you need them. We have theme programs. So theme programs are if you want to live. For example, some of the theme programs include an environmental theme program, an LGBTQ program, and an African American theme program. And it's basically like you live together, and then you also take a class, and it's really to help like foster community. And as I mentioned before, there are common areas in all of the residence halls. The meal plan is included. Your meal plan is split into swipes into the dining hall, and then flex dollars, which you can spend at on-campus cafes. Um, and our and there are dining options for any kinds of dietary restrictions you might need. So we have kosher, halal, vegetarian, vegan, anything you need, we have. And then in terms of housing during COVID, so Berkeley is taking COVID really seriously, and we're taking lots of safety precautions to make sure that all of our students are healthy and safe. So this semester, all the rooms in the dorms were single rooms. You're required to wear a face mask whenever you are not in your room. And then we've also been doing social pods. So basically like really trying to keep it so that way students are seeing a defined number of people to prevent the spread of COVID in the dorms. Also, I know we've covered a lot of information so far, so if you have any questions on anything that Will and I have talked about, or anything that pops into your head, we have a whole team of ambassadors who are eager to answer your questions on the back end, so definitely make sure to use that Q&A function.
Then to continue with transfer and continuing student housing, we also have a bunch of different options. You can continue with your campus housing that Haley just outlined. You can also be a part of International House, which is a huge mix of people from across the world who have different cultures, speak different languages. It's a really interesting place. There are also affiliated properties. So like the theme programs or all the different food options, there are also lots of different housing options. We have housing for student parents and families, and really anything you can think of, you can probably find it here. There's also off-campus apartments. This is a pretty common option for students. I think it's really great being able to have all of these Berkeley resources and your friends and kind of a lot of help to figure out your first housing sort of off campus away from parents or friends and things like that, and being able to sign a lease before moving across the country after Berkeley and figuring that out on your own. There's also co-op housing, which is you do a few tasks every week and you get a significantly reduced rent. So it's a lot more affordable. They also have some really great community there as well. There's Greek housing, whether it's a traditional fraternity or sorority, or my professional fraternity also has a house that I could live at as well. You can continue with a meal plan if you loved Crossroads so much like I did. I'm currently debating whether to continue because I love the food so much or to learn how to cook because I should probably do that. But great options regardless. And if you want to find out more information about all of these different options, you can visit the Cal Housing website at housing.berkeley.edu, or like Haley mentioned, drop them in the Q&A and we'd be happy to talk with you all.
All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about health and safety. So Berkeley has tons of resources in terms of health and safety. We have the Tang Center, which has everything to anything in terms of health that you might need. So there are doctors, nurses, labs, physical therapy, pretty much anything. In terms of the student health insurance, so we have SHIP, which is the Student Health Insurance Plan. So all Berkeley students have health insurance. And if you don't have like private insurance or other insurance, then that's an option for you to make sure that you have healthcare while in college. And then we have COVID testing and tracing. So the testing is totally free, and actually, if you live in the dorms, you're required to get tested twice a week. So again, we really are doing our best to prevent the spread of COVID. And to my understanding, it hasn't been while obviously like we're remote, I haven't heard of any like enormous outbreaks or anything. So I really do think that everyone here at Berkeley is doing their absolute best to make sure that everyone is safe and everyone is being pretty responsible. So we have psychological counseling as well. We have a program called CAPS, which is Counseling and Psychological Services. So that way, if students need to talk to a professional, that's available. And I believe the first 5 sessions are free. We have the Path to Care Center. The Path to Care Center is a really great resource on campus. They have a lot of resources for SVSH, which is sexual violence and sexual harassment. And they have a ton of resources for survivors to make sure that any survivors here are supported. We have the Optometry Eye Center on campus, so students and staff can get their eyes checked here. And then also for stress relief, which you'll see in the top right corner on the slide, that is Llama-palooza, where over midterm season, when everyone is a little bit stressed, they for in-person semesters, they bring llamas onto campus and students can pet the llamas. And then also we have a club on campus called Pause for Mental Health, where people will sit on campus with dogs and you can just go up and pet the dogs and play with the dogs. I always love when I'm walking to class and I get to see some of the dogs on campus, and I definitely make sure to say hi to them because they're really cute.
And then in addition to health, we'll also talk about safety. So in general, we have the UC Police Department, or UCPD, which works in tandem with the Berkeley City Police Department. We have blue light poles, which are pretty standard to university campuses, where you press a button, emergency services are immediately called. And these are located across campus as well as the residence halls. We have Warn Me, which I think you can get for text or email. I have the email version, and they just sort of notify you if anything's happening on campus, around campus. They're not very frequent, but a nice thing to make sure that we have. The residence hall 3-point security system. Again, it's very secure at the dorms. There's no way someone who shouldn't be in there is going to get in. And then night services. We have the night safety shuttle. You can check the progress on your phone and see where they might be. And the shuttle will take you to wherever you need to go at night. Or if you're, let's say it's 2 a.m., you're walking from the library, your friend's already left, and you want someone else to walk with you, you can call Bear Walk. This is where trained and uniformed students will come and walk with you home. I've heard they also make great conversation, so nice way to meet a friend too. And they actually operate 365 days a year, which I think is pretty incredible. I've never felt unsafe on campus, around campus at all, but it is nice to know that these services are in place in case the event that I might need one of them.
All right, so next I'm going to talk a little bit about some student resources that we have here on campus. So there's a list on the left of the slide. So we have the ASUC, which is the Associated Students of the University of California. They are our student government, and they do tons of work to advocate for students and also, just to provide lots of resources for us. One big win for students that the ASUC got us is that we are allowed to take any classes we want, pass, no pass, through spring of 2021 because we will be remote next semester. So they were really great in advocating for students and just like making it so that way, like given the stresses of this semester and kind of the unusual nature of a remote semester, if students feel the need to take any classes, even if it's for a major, they're able to do that pass, no pass. To mention another program on the slide, the Disabled Students Program is really great at getting students any accommodations that they might need. They're super accessible. I'm a DSP registered student, and they have always been really helpful, really accessible, and always really quick to get back to me with any concerns I might have. And again, there's a list of resources, and there are so many more on campus. Berkeley does a really great job at supporting their students.
And then beyond academics, what does student life look like? To be honest, really whatever you want it to look like. We have over 1,000 registered student organizations, from entomology club where I looked at bugs to, my linguistics club where the inventor of languages has come to talk to us, to hang gliding club, which is the club I most want to join because it sounds incredible. There are lots of different volunteering options through these clubs, like Habitat for Humanity, or in local Berkeley organizations. I volunteer through Reuse, our on-campus thrift store. There's campus employment. A lot of my friends work in the dining halls or tutor or work in the libraries. There's also lots of different options just in the Berkeley community because it is a city. And you can also go through the Career Center. They help with really anything, like resume help to finding contacts to jobs after you graduate as well. So lots of options there. And lots of options for internships. A lot of internships have moved online, which kind of makes them a bit more accessible. So I know some people who are doing internships right now. That being said, a lot of options again in San Francisco and Silicon Valley. We are the #1 feeder school to the Silicon Valley. So there are a lot of kind of established networks that students go through to find internships with specific organizations or companies or communities in general over the summer or during school as well in the fall or spring. Study abroad, very feasible. You can do an internship abroad as well. And there are lots of options from a wide array of different countries. I'm mainly considering going to Brazil, but I've also looked into programs in Senegal and Tanzania. So there are really so many different options, and it's very feasible to get credit and all that stuff as well. And just in general, Bay Area exploration. In the top right, you'll see some drone footage of the Bay Area. It's a gorgeous place. Having grown up here, I'm a little bit biased, but it's really beautiful. There's so many different parks and the Golden Gate Bridge and the different cities. There's so much going on that I guarantee there's no way you'll be bored on campus or just living in the Bay Area in general.
All right, so a little bit about remote resources for this semester. So as we've mentioned before, this semester has been remote, and the Berkeley is doing everything that they can to help students adapt to the remote environment. So they're really utilizing social media, and then our student groups and clubs are doing everything remotely. So for example, I'm really involved with Hillel, so all of our meetings are remote, and then all of our programming is remote as well. We've done different events like Jeopardy and like a trivia night, and then we're also doing like Netflix watch parties and lots of different like remote programming to make sure that people have ways to get involved with on-campus organizations while we are doing this remote environment. There have been department webinars, so a lot of different departments or clubs that are affiliated with departments have been hosting webinars to help students. For example, I know one of the clubs that's affiliated with the MCB department did a webinar about like summer opportunities and what opportunities are available and how to get like a job in MCB for the summer. And then also we have a program called Golden Bear Orientation, which we abbreviate as GBO. So Golden Bear Orientation is our orientation program that happens before school starts, the purpose is to get first years acclimated to campus, and it's led by upperclassmen. And this year, GBO was fully remote. So all the programming was remote, but students were still able to meet each other through remote programming. And it really helps like foster community, even though we are in this remote environment.
And then on to athletics. Students are really pursuing excellence in academics and outside of class, but also in regards to athletics too. We have three levels of competition mainly. One is Division One, which is, your recruited athletes that represent the university. Below that is club, which is maybe you played competitively in high school and still want to continue that. They also travel across the nation, so that's a really great way to stay involved. And then we also have intramural and recreational. Let's say you want to play pickup soccer with some friends, or you've never tried a sport like jugger or Quidditch or something along those lines, then you can do that through intramural. Our California Memorial Stadium, you'll see in the top left, there are lots of resources there for athletes, including the Simpson High Performance Center, as well as the Athletic Study Center. You'll also see Haas Pavilion in the bottom right photo, which is where basketball, gymnastics, volleyball, those sort of sports happen. And we also have the recreational sports facility. They have squash courts to different pools, to elliptical, really like any sort of workout equipment you could ever think of, as well as nap spaces, which are also nice, and like massaging chairs and all of that. And we also have a bunch of really great PE programs. PE is actually really fun in college, which I've discovered. I'm particularly looking forward to doing our martial arts classes. And then in regards to Olympic medals, Berkeley students and alumni have won 207, over half of which are gold medals. So really, whatever you want to get involved with at Berkeley, again, there are options and there are tons of interesting and excellent people who are there for you and want to help you out with that.
All right, so next I'm going to talk a little bit about libraries and research. So we have 24 on-campus libraries with over 13 million volumes and extensive online resources. So I really like studying at the libraries on campus, and I really like going with my friends and studying. Although arguably sometimes when I go with my friends, there's less studying. And then with the 13 million volumes, there's pretty much any resource that you might need. So if you're looking for a source, it's highly likely that we have it. And then again, in the virtual environment, we do have a lot of online resources. We have online databases. We have access to tons of academic papers, articles, whatnot online, which is really great in this virtual environment. And then in terms of research, we have the Undergraduate Research Apprenticeship Program, which we abbreviate as URAP. URAP is at the beginning of every semester. If professors have openings on their research, they'll post it to URAP, and then students can apply through that. Students are able to apply to up to 3 projects, and then if they're accepted, they can do research that way. Other students will get research through just cold emailing professors, which is really common as well. So you can get research through the formal program, or you can just send like an informal email. People here do both. And there are lots of ways to get involved. So like I mentioned, there are lots of ways to get involved with research on campus.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Haley. I've found it really accessible. I was kind of surprised that I got a research position already, but it's been really fun. And then to finish up our sort of slideshow portion of this, just to bring in some different campus highlights, we do have the fire trails, which are a bunch of hiking trails directly next to some of the dorms that go up into the Berkeley Hills. You have a creek running through our whole campus. Our whole campus is basically hills, which I love because it basically means that wherever you are, you can probably get a really amazing view. So you walk to class and you look to your left and you see the Golden Gate Bridge. You keep walking and you see one of my favorite trees, a redwood tree, that are all over campus. there's so many different plants and animals, it's just this really great mix between an urban environment that is Berkeley, as well as all of the nature and trails and the creek and everything like that. I think it also just gives you a lot of space to kind of relax and decompress or study. If you're into biology and stuff like that, you could also study it. But for me, I think it's just a really nice place to relax and unwind. And yeah, and with that, I think we'll be getting into our Q&A.
Yes, thank you, Will. And thank you, Haley, for such a great tour of campus. Now we're going to transition into the live Q&A portion of today's virtual visit. So I'll go ahead and ask Will our first question, and this is from Anonymous. They ask, if we apply to the College of Letters and Science, how much time do we have until it's recommended that we narrow down to one major?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I mean, the really short answer is 4 semesters, so the end of your second year. I'm in my almost done with my 3rd semester here, and I'm still not declared, so you really have a lot of flexibility. I've changed my mind about so many different majors. I think the most important thing is keeping your options open. A lot of the social sciences and humanities have a lot of overlap too, as well as a bunch of the prerequisites for STEM courses. So just kind of keeping that in mind. And also, if you take a class and, for example, I took a global studies class and I thought, this isn't the major for me, but it was still fantastic to learn. It also fulfilled a breadth requirement for international studies. So it's really built into your degree that you have that flexibility. So I really recommend taking advantage of it and sort of just looking at all of our amazing classes. It's like 6,000 every semester, which is crazy. And just choosing ones that you like and sort of narrowing down the major after a little bit. That's my advice, at least.
That's great advice. I had a similar experience. I added on my second major because I was interested in it, and also because I had actually already completed a lot of the requirements or the prerequisites for it. So that was really exciting for me. So I really appreciate the flexibility of LNS, as you said. Our next question, I'll turn over to Haley. Anonymous asks, in your experience, what helped you figure out which major to pursue? Was it internships, clubs, webinars, or something else?
Yeah, so when I came into college, I was pretty set on a bio major, so I kind of started taking the classes for it. I really liked science in high school. I did research in high school. So for me, I was pretty committed to it. But that being said, a lot of people come in undeclared. That's really common. And you get a lot of opportunities to take, for example, like breadth requirements where you can explore different areas of study. So for example, like if you're in LNS, you'll take like a biological science, a social science, a physical science, international studies. So you cover a really wide range, which gives you the opportunity to explore different fields that you might be interested in. And then there are lots of opportunities to join clubs, do internships. I think clubs are really great because you get to meet a lot of people and hear about their experience. For me, a lot of my first 2 years, I barely used advising because because I would always just ask my friends, what classes I should take or what things I should get involved in, and they always had really great advice. So if you're unsure, that's definitely I would definitely say you should get involved and just talk to people and hear about their experiences to help decide what you want to do.
I totally agree. I think all of the things that the person who asked this question listed are great, like internships, clubs, everything, and also talking to people in your life. And taking different classes to explore, those are all great ways to kind of develop your passion and decide exactly what you want to do. So thank you, Haley. Our next question is also for Haley. It's from Rory. Rory says, "Hi, I'm from Connecticut too. What's it like coming in as an out-of-state student?"
Yeah, so when I came for Cal Day, it was my second time in California. Cal Day is our admitted students day. And the first time I'd been to SoCal, so it was definitely a different experience coming north. But that being said, I've had a really great experience here as an out-of-state student. One thing I was kind of worried about was that because Berkeley is a state school, I was worried that like everyone was going to come in with their high school friends and that like it was going to be kind of cliquey or that like everyone would already know everyone. But I definitely didn't find that to be the case. Everyone was really friendly and welcoming. Um, and I think it's a really great place to be. The other cool thing is that with Berkeley, because California is such a big and diverse state, it doesn't really feel like it's a state school. Like it doesn't feel like insulated or like that everyone's from the same place. Especially because in California, obviously you got like rural parts, you have like LA, tons of different places where people are coming in from. And then in terms of like going home, I would say I go home pretty much as frequently as my friends do. So it's not, and again, I'm from Connecticut, so it's a long flight, but I definitely like go home for Thanksgiving and winter break. So I get to go home as well.
Nice. I think Rory probably appreciated that perspective as someone who's coming in from out of state. So thank you, Haley. Our next question, and I'll turn it over to Will, is I really want to travel. Is it easy to study abroad? And what was your study abroad experience like?
Yeah, fantastic question. I always love talking about study abroad, as if you know anyone else who's studied abroad, they probably love talking about it too, and that's for good reason because it's a really fantastic experience. At Berkeley, it's honestly pretty easy to do. I think most people have this conception that like you can only study abroad if you have a ton of extra time and extra money and like it's an add-on, a luxury. It's really not if you're already at Berkeley. For one, financial aid carries over to all UC EAP programs, UC Education Abroad program. UC EAP is also great because it covers all of the UC campuses, which just means that there are a ton of different programs you can go through. You can also find independent programs that are often cheaper, most of the time cheaper than going to Berkeley. So that's also a great option. And I think also in terms of timing, every single major can study abroad. One of my friends was in chemistry first semester and he's like, oh, I won't be able to, like, that's not for chem majors. So I went online and found him a whole spreadsheet that they have for chem majors so that they can study abroad. Lots of students have done it in every single department. It is feasible, it is affordable. Whether you want to intern, study, travel, whatever it is. I'd also add that studying abroad isn't just traveling. I think it's a really valuable experience to live with other students in another place and sort of like involve yourself in that youth culture there. And so I think it's a lot more valuable of an experience than just living elsewhere or traveling elsewhere. So I highly recommend it to anyone. It is feasible, it's affordable, and you can definitely do it here at Berkeley.
Very nice. I totally agree. I was actually supposed to study abroad this past spring, but unfortunately, because of all the circumstances, I wasn't able to go. But I'm still looking forward to perhaps working abroad or traveling abroad in the future. I think it's a great experience for every student to look into. And if you do get to have that experience, it can really like change your life and just teach you a lot. So thank you, Will, for sharing. Our next question is anyone can answer this one. It's from Anonymous, and they say, which library has the best architecture? And maybe beyond just saying like which library has the best architecture, you can talk about what your favorite library is on campus. Either of you can take this question.
I can start. This is a really good question. I find it really difficult to choose. I guess one favorite is the CV Star East Asian Library, which is just gorgeous. There's also Doe Library, which most people know about. It's the big one on campus, has really gorgeous windows and things like that. I guess something interesting to me, architecture-wise, is that our biggest library is like underground and it's enormous. Showing friends that for the first time and just seeing their mind kind of blown at the scale and how beautiful it is inside. So I think that's a really neat aspect of architecture. I think for me, I really try to go to a lot of different libraries. They all have a different atmosphere. like Haley was talking about, we have a ton. So unlike other schools, you really have a lot of different options for study spaces, for hanging out with people, finding resources. Librarians are amazing resources for whatever you want to do. They know a ton. So it really depends. It's too hard to choose. There's so many.
I totally agree. It's like we have so many libraries on campus. How do you pick a favorite? But I definitely would say Doe has really impressive architecture. Like it's huge and it has these like grand windows and really high ceilings and just like classic kind of like university library look. But then we have just like tiny libraries all throughout campus too, which I also love. So it's really hard to choose, but great answer. All right. In the interest of time, we're going to move on to our last question for today. And any other questions, I hope will be answered in the typed format for anyone who asked them. But our last question is, what is your Berkeley story? Whatever that might mean to you. So let's start with Haley and then we'll go to Will.
Yeah, so when I was applying to colleges, like I said, I'm from Connecticut. So my parents were like, you absolutely cannot apply to school in California. It is too far. And I told them that I would just apply to UCLA, but that I wouldn't go. So I like to say that I kept my promise because I didn't go to UCLA. But in all seriousness, I wasn't expecting to love Berkeley as much as I did. I came for Cal Day, and I was absolutely in love with the people here and the location and the campus, and really everything. I remember that like when I first got in, there was one girl who was like 2 years older than me, from my high school, who went here, and I messaged her on Facebook and I was like, hey, I got in, like, can you tell me a little bit about it? And she sent me back like 50 messages with like everything to anything you could possibly need to know about Berkeley, whether that was about housing, MCB. She wasn't an MCB major, but found all the information on it. And I think that really speaks to the kind of people that we have at Berkeley, where everyone is really like in it together and really wants to help each other out. And for me, I'm really happy that I ended up here because I love Berkeley a lot.
Yeah, I can continue. So I think for me, my Berkeley story is just a lot of indecisiveness and back and forth. I honestly did not know that much about Berkeley. I don't know how. I live somewhat in the area, but it just, I don't know, went over my head. And I ended up getting in off of the wait list after committing to another school. And so I committed then to Berkeley. I went to our big open house that Haley was talking about. And that's kind of where I discovered sort of the breadth of how interesting this campus is. I got an ultrasound of my tongue in the linguistics lab, which was fascinating, looking at how I talk. And then I also got to see some other performances. There's just so much going on and such great spirit on campus that it was really fun. Then I deferred my acceptance and went abroad. Everyone in those programs was like juniors and seniors in college and talking about how this was the best experience of their whole college career. And I was thinking, oh yeah, it's great. Like study abroad's fantastic, but did I just like start off with the best part of it? Like just sort of made me worried about what Berkeley was going to be like, how I was going to adapt to, that new environment. I then got to Berkeley and have found that at times it feels more international than when I was actually international, just because of the great confluence of so many different people and perspectives and opportunities. So I've been really glad that sort of my initial worries were completely like not valid, I guess. And being here, I've gone through a bunch of different majors because I am indecisive and my plans change all the time, as you can see. And so I've just been really happy with all of the flexibility that I have, being able to involve myself in all of these different programs at the same time. Because as you can see, I'm indecisive. I'm also indecisive with where I'll be studying abroad next year or maybe the year after. But I know in the end that whatever I choose is going to be a fantastic option because it is through Berkeley. And I know that whatever it may be, it will end up being the right track for me because there are just such a wealth of interesting things to do that I really can't go wrong. So I've been extremely happy to end up here after all of this indecision. And I'm kind of excited to figure out the rest of my journey as well.
Awesome, both of you. Thank you so much for your inspiring and thoughtful Berkeley stories. And I hope that everyone out there watching appreciates just how honest and just helpful you've been this entire hour. So thank you. Just to conclude everything, we did want to mention that we have our own Instagram and social media. So you can follow us at Visit UC Berkeley. You can also email tour@berkeley.edu, and a student ambassador will get back to you with an answer for your question if we didn't answer it today. We also have our own blog called Bear Talk, and that's where we talk about our experiences as Berkeley students. So if you want to learn more about the student experience, it's a great resource. There are other recorded virtual visits available on our YouTube channel at Visit UC Berkeley. And we also have a few links for campus resources like our COVID-19 information at coronavirus.berkeley.edu, the 150 Years of Women celebration at 150w.berkeley.edu, and the admissions presentation at admissions.berkeley.edu/visit. Lastly, we do have ambassador student panels and engineering virtual visits on our website, visit.berkeley.edu. So we hope to see you at one of those if you're interested. And with that, we wanted to just say thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll end with a Go Bears on 3. 1, 2, 3, Go Bears.
Go Bears!
Thank you and have a great day.